I'm here with Dr. Peter Piot of UNAIDS. My first question is, you spoke about how critical it is to involve the HIV community in the hunt for solutions to the global epidemic. What does the HIV community bring to the equation that, governments, doctors, and health departments do not?
Well, at the end of the day, when everything will have been written and so on, it's the only group in the world that is really going to fight to maintain AIDS on the agenda, to make sure that the treatment for everybody is going to be people living with HIV. It's the ultimate and the core constituency. That's also why I came here and at the summit, and I cannot really even imagine that we will be successful in the response to AIDS without an involvement of people with HIV from the beginning. That means from the planning, from developing the policies, and of course also implementation. And the PWA movement has been truly transforming in many countries, in bringing people to the table who up to then in that society had no voice.
Right. You've spoken about new leadership, and a lot of the people that are becoming newly infected in the United States are, disenfranchised or marginalized parts of the population, women and MSM and young people. And how are we going to get these people to the table? Because these new faces and these new voices are the ones that have to be heard as well.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. I was in Washington D.C. and I met with a group of positive women, and all African American women, or African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants, and just totally marginalized, poor, subject to violence and all that. And then I was, how can their voices be also heard in the PWA movement, because they're not at the moment.
No.
And let's not forget that we're coming from a white, gay, middle-class men who, with well-educated often and with money, and that has been enormously effective. But now the epidemic is moving and is a bit elsewhere, and that's where we have to support far more where the epidemic is today, these groups. Absolutely.
You talked about fighting stigma and discrimination, which of course is the biggest concern for so many of us. You said that when you thought when people would get treatment that would bring people forward and stigma would go away, but it doesn't. And is it so simple that HIV is a sexually transmitted disease and people are afraid to talk about sex? Is making people more comfortable talking about sex part of the answer to destigmatizing this disease?
Yeah, I was a bit naive, but I was not the only one, and thinking, okay, everybody's got treatment, so then why would you even be afraid? Because I thought the stigma was based also on fear, but now I'm thinking more and more stigma is in our head.
Yeah.
And I think it's about the fact that so many people have problems with their own sexuality, are confused, or and that's what it's about. I think it's fundamentally about how we deal with sex and how we want everybody to be, I don't know what. I mean, I don't get it, but it's a fact of life. It's very, very profound. And I think we need to, therefore, make sure that this is one part of anti-stigma, anti-homophobia, sexism, part of it also, that's part of any AIDS campaign, but also that we work on that on a broader societal basis. That's why sex education and life skills education is so important. But we've not made much progress on that. I mean, every survey on stigma and discrimination shows that it's as bad as it was 10 years ago.
Oh, I know, and worse for women. One of the things that was said this morning is by the HIV-positive gentleman who spoke, that he had to forgive himself and let go of his own shame. And that's something that I think is a process for everyone living with HIV. So maybe we need to focus on the community itself and teaching the community not to feel shame and disgrace, and to empower them to come forward when they can. Do you agree?
I agree, but it's very deep. I mean, so it's societal norms, it's community, but it's also individual and our education and so on. We're touching on so many things. Yesterday at the White House ceremony where President Bush signed the PEPFAR reauthorization, he appealed to people to come forward, to test, and he said, and that we should make sure that there is no shame of being HIV positive. And I found that very powerful. I mean, the rest of the speech was good, but that was very personal, and he talked about there is no shame of living with HIV.